Patrick Ewing made a career out of battling the biggest names in the paint, and when he was asked about the toughest players he ever faced, he didn't bring up Michael Jordan. Ewing explained that Jordan wasn't his matchup, so the real test came from the great centers of his era. He pointed to Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaquille O'Neal, and David Robinson as the three players who pushed him to his limits. Ewing said that against guys like that, you had to rest, prepare, and bring your best every night. And let's start things off with Hakeem Olajuwon.
It's a dream matchup of two of the NBA's best centers.
When Patrick Ewing talked about the toughest opponents of his career, one name that came up right away was Hakeem Olajuwon. And it's not hard to see why. Olajuwon built a resume that places him among the greatest centers to ever play the game. He was a two-time NBA champion in 1994 and 1995. He won both Finals MVPs during those years, and he also picked up the regular season MVP in 1994. Beyond that, he was a 12-time All-Star and collected All-NBA and All-Defensive honors throughout his prime. Twice he was named Defensive Player of the Year, proving that he wasn't only dominant on offense, but just as dangerous on the other end of the floor. What made Olajuwon stand out was the way he scored in the post. The Dream Shake became one of the most feared moves in basketball history. Defenders never knew whether he was going to fake left, spin right, or pivot back into a hook shot. He could hit a jumper out of the move or get to the rim with a quick step. His footwork was so precise that even the strongest defenders ended up off balance. And once that happened, he had complete control. For a player like Ewing, who prided himself on his defense, matching up with Olajuwon meant dealing with a constant stream of fakes, counters, and split-second decisions.
But Hakeem, he was very unpredictable on the block. You thought he was going right, he would go left.
Olajuwon's greatness was just as clear on defense. He had the length and timing to block shots at the rim, but he also had the quick hands to swipe steals from post players who weren't paying attention. That combination made him a true two-way center, the kind who could anchor a team on both ends without ever coming off the floor. His peak years between 1993 and 1995 are often described as one of the most complete runs by any big man in league history. So when Ewing pointed to Olajuwon as one of the toughest he ever faced, it was a reflection of what it took to compete against someone who could beat you with skill, strength, and intelligence, all in the same possession.
Hakeem is a great player. I think I'm a great player, but it's not Patrick Ewing against Hakeem Olajuwon.
Ewing and Hakeem matched up 35 times, and the balance was as close as it gets. Hakeem won 18, Ewing won 17. It was a rivalry that stayed competitive for years, but the one series that stands out is the 1994 NBA Finals. That was their only postseason meeting, and it went the full 7 games with everything on the line. Olajuwon carried the Rockets with averages of almost 27 points, 9 rebounds, and nearly 4 assists. Numbers that earned him the Finals MVP. Ewing fought back with his usual intensity, leading the entire playoffs in rebounds, but the Knicks fell just short. The deciding game came on June 22, 1994, when Houston sealed the championship with a 90-84 victory. New York's defense held strong, but their offense collapsed as John Starks struggled badly from the field, leaving Ewing to battle Olajuwon without enough support.
He probably played with the least amount of talent that any great Hall of Famer probably had.
That postseason told the story of two centers defining their teams. Olajuwon led all players in total points with 664, putting his scoring ability at the front of Houston's run. Ewing dominated the glass with 293 total rebounds, making sure New York controlled second chances and kept possessions alive. When they faced each other directly, it was a clash of styles. Ewing relied on strength and positioning to protect the rim and score from the post. Olajuwon relied on timing, length, and endless counters to create space where none seemed to exist. For Ewing, going against Hakeem was exactly what he meant when he said you had to bring your A game. If you lost focus or energy, Olajuwon had too many ways to punish you. The 1994 Finals cemented their rivalry as one of the defining battles of that era. When you break down the way Hakeem Olajuwon and Patrick Ewing matched up, the contrast in their styles becomes clear. Ewing built his offense on power in the post and a reliable face-up jumper. He could back you down with strength, then rise over the top for a mid-range shot. Olajuwon, on the other hand, came at defenders with layers of footwork. The dream shake, the spins, the fakes, the pivots. He had an answer for almost every defensive adjustment. Against most centers, that was more than enough. But against Ewing, it turned into a chess match between raw strength and technical skill.
He would get you at the free throw line, give you a little stutter-step dribble, and you wouldn't know what to do as a big guy. You look in the guards, for help.
On defense, the gap tilted toward Olajuwon. Ewing was a premier shot blocker who anchored the Knicks' half-court sets and forced opponents into tough attempts around the rim. He protected space with his body, contested shots, and limited second chances. Olajuwon did all of that, but added an extra dimension with his hands and timing. He not only blocked shots, he stole the ball from post players who hesitated for even a moment. That made him disruptive in ways that went beyond traditional rim protection, and it often shifted momentum in Houston's favor. The 1994 finals highlighted how those differences played out over the course of 7 games. Ewing put up huge rebounding and shot blocking numbers, but Olajuwon's ability to control both ends of the floor swung the series. His scoring variety stretched New York's defense, and his activity on the other end took away many of the Knicks' best options. That was the edge that pushed Houston over the top. For Ewing, it reinforced the point he often made. When you went up against a player like Olajuwon, there was no shortcut. You had to rest, prepare, and bring your best effort every single night, because if you didn't, he was going to dominate.
And, Patrick was a great player, but if you ask me the better of the two, I'm going to have to go with Hakeem Olajuwon.
Ewing's battles with Hakeem showed what it was like to go against a technical master. His matchups with Shaquille O'Neal were a very different story. Shaq brought power and size at a level the league had rarely seen, and that forced Ewing to prepare in an entirely new way. Here was a guy who patterned his game after Ewing, but was more physically gifted.
Coming up, I, tried to pattern my game after Patrick.
Shaquille O'Neal's resume speaks for itself. He won 4 championships, 3 of them coming in a row with the Lakers at the start of the 2000s. He picked up 3 Finals MVPs during that run, added a regular season MVP in 2000, and made 15 All-Star teams across his career. Few players in NBA history have combined that much team success with that much personal recognition. Those numbers alone put him in the conversation as one of the toughest players any center could go up against. And for Ewing, that meant Shaq was a lock for his top 3. On offense, Shaq changed the geometry of the floor. He lived in the paint, scoring at an incredibly high percentage because so much of his game was built on dunks, deep post steals, and powerful finishes. He did have a glaring weakness at the free throw line, but even that rarely slowed him down. Defenders had no choice but to foul him, and even if he missed half his attempts, the constant pressure wore down teams over the course of a game. Coaches had to change rotations, send extra defenders, and accept that he was going to score in bunches around the rim. That gravitational pull made life easier for his teammates and forced opponents into mistakes. His peak between 1999 and 2002 may have been the most dominant stretch we've ever seen from a big man. He was unstoppable in the 2000 season, winning the MVP and then rolling through the playoffs with averages that looked like something out of a video game. He followed that up with 3 straight Finals MVP awards, setting the standard for what it meant to carry a franchise through the postseason. By the time Ewing was near the end of his prime, Shaq was redefining what sheer size and force could do in the modern NBA. Ewing and O'Neal went against each other 26 times, and Shaq walked away with 15 wins to Ewing's 11. They never met in the playoffs, but their regular season battles offered plenty of insight into how different their styles were. Ewing averaged just over 21 points, nearly 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks in those games, which shows he still produced at a high level even against the most physically imposing center of his era.
Patrick was mean. Patrick was mean, and all the Georgetown guys were mean.
The early matchups in particular were fascinating. This was Orlando Shaq, a version of him that still ran the floor like a freight train and combined mobility with size in a way the league wasn't ready for. Ewing was anchoring a Knicks team that thrived on half-court defense and toughness, so every game between them was a test of tempo. If Shaq got deep position, there was very little anyone could do to stop him. He used his body to carve out space under the basket, and once he was there, the play was over before it even began. One of the biggest problems Ewing faced was Shaq's ability to attack the rim twice in the same possession. If the first shot didn't fall, Shaq had the strength and quick bounce to grab his own miss and finish it before defenders could recover. That second jump power forced the Knicks to send help earlier than they wanted, which stretched their defense and tested Ewing's ability to contest without racking up fouls. Even for someone with Ewing's discipline and shot-blocking instincts, it was a constant headache. Their head-to-head numbers don't tell the full story, because Shaq's presence went beyond the box score. Every time they matched up, New York had to adjust the way they defended just to keep him in check. For Ewing, who prided himself on standing tall against the best, guarding Shaq meant handling the most overwhelming combination of size, strength, and athleticism the league had ever seen. Guarding Shaquille O'Neal was unlike guarding anyone else. Most centers relied on skill or finesse to get position, but Shaq didn't need tricks. His weight and raw leverage allowed him to seal defenders almost at will, and once he caught the ball deep, the play was over. Ewing fought back with what he had always relied on: a solid base, sharp positioning, and the discipline to front or deny passes before they ever reached Shaq's hands. The battles between them were as much about who won the first 2 seconds of a possession as they were about who finished the shot. The pace of play created just as big a contrast. O'Neal thrived when the floor opened up, sprinting from rim to rim and demanding the ball before defenders could set themselves. Those early touches put enormous pressure on New York's defense, which was built for slow, methodical basketball. Ewing excelled in half-court control, anchoring possessions and forcing opponents to grind through shot clocks. Whenever Shaq got the game into his tempo, it tilted things toward Orlando or Los Angeles. When the Knicks slowed it down, Ewing's style took over. Even in the half-court, the matchup had layers. Ewing used his face-up jumper to pull Shaq away from the basket, testing his lateral quickness and opening driving lanes for teammates. That shot became one of his most important counters against Shaq's strength inside. On the other end, O'Neal's drop-step dunk was nearly unstoppable. It collapsed the Knicks' help defense and put Ewing in situations where a single misstep meant a foul or an easy basket. Each possession felt like a negotiation between power and precision. Ewing often said that against great centers, you had to be rested, focused, and ready to bring your best effort. Nowhere was that truer than against Shaq. If the preparation slipped or the energy dropped, O'Neal took complete control of the paint. That's what made him one of the few players Ewing placed among his toughest opponents. But the respect was mutual.
You look like you're getting emotional.
Yeah, I just saw Patrick Ewing, man.
Ewing's list of toughest opponents didn't stop with Olajuwon and O'Neal. The third name he mentioned was David Robinson. He was a player who combined athleticism, skill, and defense in a way that created a completely different challenge. Robinson's won the league MVP in 1995, picked up Defensive Player of the Year honors in 1992, and finished his career with 2 championships in San Antonio. Over a decade of dominance, he was voted to 10 All-NBA teams and 8 All-Defensive teams, proving he was elite on both ends of the floor.
Like myself, he's very quick and very agile.
One of the highlights of Robinson's career came in 1994 when he recorded a quadruple-double with 34 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and 10 blocks. Only 3 other players in NBA history have ever done it, and that stat line summed up the type of impact he brought to the game. He could score, defend, rebound, pass, and completely change the flow of play on defense, all in a single night. Physically, Robinson was built differently from most centers of his time. He had the size to hold his own inside, but what separated him was mobility. At 7 feet tall, he could run the floor like a forward, face up defenders from 15 feet, and get to the rim with a quick first step. That athletic profile also made him a nightmare on defense. His length and timing gave him the ability to block shots at the rim, while his speed let him cover ground and rotate across the paint faster than most bigs. Ewing would often say that playing versus Robinson meant preparing for a player who didn't just match him in size but could outrun and outjump most opponents. That blend of skill and athleticism made Robinson one of the defining centers of the 1992s, and a clear reason Ewing put him on the short list of toughest covers he ever faced.
He's a tremendous post player.
Ewing over Robinson, yes.
So, how many matchups did these two have? According to our research, they met 19 times, with David Robinson winning 12 of those games compared to Patrick Ewing's 7. A playoff series never came, so the regular season was where their rivalry played out and where fans judged the battles between them. Robinson's Spurs relied on pace and space, using his speed and athleticism to pressure defenses. He liked to face up from the elbow, take that first explosive step, and get to the rim before help rotated. That style forced opposing centers into uncomfortable spots, especially teams built to play slower. Ewing's Knicks approached the game differently. Their offense was built around half-court sets and physical post play. Ewing fought for deep position, worked methodically on the block, and punished defenders with strength and touch. New York wanted control, grinding games into defensive struggles where effort and toughness decided the outcome. When those styles collided, the contrast was obvious. Robinson looked to run the floor and stretch possessions with his mobility, while Ewing thrived when everything slowed down and the battle stayed in the paint. Each meeting turned into a test of which tempo would win out. National TV broadcasts highlighted that clash and helped cement it in fans' memories. Robinson flying down the court for transition baskets, Ewing setting up inside for bruising post-ups. Those sequences defined their head-to-head duels. The win-loss numbers leaned Robinson's way, showing how effective his speed and length could be against New York's half-court approach. Still, Ewing held his ground statistically, putting up points and rebounds close to his averages. He remained productive even when the Knicks couldn't match San Antonio's pace. And how did Ewing and Robinson really compare when their games lined up? Robinson brought a face-up style that was rare for a 7-footer at the time. From about 15 to 18 feet, he could catch, square up, and explode past defenders with that first step. Ewing usually played drop coverage, keeping himself closer to the basket to protect the rim, which meant Robinson often had the space to get moving before contact was made. That matchup forced Ewing to balance between guarding the drive and holding his position in the paint. Defensively, both men served as anchors, but in very different ways. Robinson thrived as a help defender. His length and speed let him cover ground quickly, rotating from the weak side to block shots that seemed out of reach. He often disrupted plays that weren't even his assignment. Ewing's strength was more traditional. He held his ground inside, challenged shots directly at the rim, and used positioning to make sure opponents couldn't carve out easy space. The contrast was clear. Robinson roamed to clean up mistakes, while Ewing stood firm as the last line.
For these men not only share enormous talent, but the spirit of a warrior.
Robinson's ability to run the floor added another wrinkle. His transition speed regularly put pressure on New York's defense, creating mismatches before everyone could get back. Ewing answered in the half court with polished footwork and touch from the mid-post. He could face up, jab, and shoot over defenders, keeping the Knicks' offense steady when games slowed down. That constant back and forth showed how their skills clashed and balanced each other at the same time. Ewing often spoke about the preparation needed for battles like these. Against Robinson, it meant being ready to match energy, avoid getting outworked, and fight through every possession. Robinson's MVP-level production proved how tough he was to deal with. But Ewing's consistency made the matchup competitive every time. Their duels were less about one man dominating the other and more about two Hall of Fame centers forcing each other to bring their absolute best. Patrick Ewing's toughest battles came against three centers who defined an era with very different styles. Each matchup pushed him to prepare, adjust, and fight harder than ever. Those names tell the story of just how loaded the 92nd center class really was. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and let us know which rivalry you'd like covered next.